And now, to talk about the fight, we are joined by my man Joshua Garcia, boxing writer with the New York Beacon. Joshua, welcome.
Hey, Somari, how's it going?
It's going good, man. So it's good to talk to you again. So, how excited are you about this matchup, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury 2 tomorrow night?
I'm very excited. If you watch the first fight, you're basically going to run it back. These are two guys who are undefeated. These are the number one and number two heavyweights in the world. This is exactly what you want to see. In the other weight divisions, guys tend to duck each other, stay away from each other, take more time to prepare for the top talent in the division. And these two guys had to be restrained, from getting in the ring 2 days ago. I don't know if you saw any of the press conference, but
oh yeah,
they won't be doing a standoff today in the weigh-in because the Nevada State Athletic Commission has banned these two men in particular from having any type of face-offs because of what happened the other day with the shoving match. So they don't want anything to go down with ruining tomorrow night because of just how big this fight is.
How much do you think it was? Jerry Luke here. How much do you think it was a little PR promotion? How much was it? How much of that was reality?
Oh, it was definitely all PR to sell the fight. These two guys respect each other highly. They like each other, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I got that feeling. Yeah,
they like looking across the ring at somebody who reminds them of themselves.
There you go. That's great.
And Tyson Fury plenty of times has said, if you want to be the best, you have to have the resume. And for him to put Deontay Wilder on his resume next to Klitschko, next to Tom Schwarz, now you're talking about a Hall of Fame resume for Tyson Fury.
Now, for a long time, go back to a year or so ago, the big fight that everyone wanted to see in the heavyweight division was Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. And both, Wilder had the surprising draw to Fury, and Joshua was beaten by Andy Ruiz, and then Ruiz and Joshua had a rematch, and that was highly anticipated, and Joshua came back and beat Ruiz decidedly. It seemed like Joshua, after kind of sleeping maybe a little bit on Ruiz in fight one, was more focused the second time around and beat Ruiz handily. Now, in this fight with Wilder and Fury, why do we think that Fury will not go by the wayside the way Ruiz did? With Wilder now coming into this fight, we expect more focused.
Well, the difference is the training for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury made no secret about it. Going into the first fight, he was out of shape, basically, for a heavyweight fight against the type of fighter of Deontay Wilder's caliber. He was not prepared nearly enough, and he still walked away with a draw. He did get knocked down twice, but I would challenge anybody to say, other than those two knockdowns, the rest of the fight went Fury's way. He outboxed him. He was slippery. He slipped punches. He countered. He hit Deontay with a few shots, none that did so much damage to Deontay, but it made him respect who Tyson Fury is. And coming into this fight, Tyson has switched up everything. You would almost think he lost the last fight, the way he's coming into this one, because he switched up his trainer. He has a new trainer who is Emmanuel Steward's nephew. His name is Sugar Hill, and Sugar Hill is known as a trainer who prepares you for a knockout. One of the big things coming into this fight was Tyson said, I don't think I can win on cards. There's no way I can win on the cards. I'm not going to win if it comes to a 12-round decision. So he hired a trainer that he believes, and he keeps saying, I'm going to knock him out in the second round. That's a bit ambitious, but he is preparing for a knockout. And the other day when the judges were announced, there's 3 American judges. So if you're Tyson Fury from the UK, you're not crazy about 3 American judges, and it even emphasizes more the fact that he's not going to win on the cards, or possibly not win on the cards if it comes down to it, and makes it even more important that he get a knockdown or a knockout if he wants to win this fight.
What kind of punching power does Fury have? How much has he been able to end fights with a knockout?
A quick look at the resume of Tyson Fury with Derek Chisora and Tom Schwartz and Vladimir Klitschko. These are guys who don't go down with pillow fists. You know, as Deontay loves to call Tyson Fury, he says he has two pillows for fists. These type of guys on his resume do not go down. He didn't become the lineal champ by mistake. You know, Deontay likes to talk a lot about how the lineal championship doesn't matter, but you know, Tyson is a boxing historian. He's named after Mike Tyson. He says he wants to bring back the 70s, the golden era of heavyweight boxing, and he can rattle off all of his favorite boxers. So Tyson he's really out to make his name in this fight, but this fight is so important for Deontay. This is another UK versus America type fight. This is a Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson type fight. And it's very important for Deontay because the U.S., as Matchroom Boxing CEO Eddie Hearn says, America has a boxing problem. When a nation like the UK can outsell America in pay-per-views, and it's a much smaller nation, there's a huge problem. And this is now being put on Deontay Wilder's shoulders, which makes this fight so important for him.
And it's interesting because for a long time, throughout boxing's history, the heavyweight division has been the premier division, and it seems like that division has been the start of what has made boxing and big boxing fight, these main events, so special. And for a period of time after probably Lennox Lewis, and he wasn't even from this country, but for a long period of time, I guess Lennox Lewis was probably the last heavyweight, maybe up until now, that people, even in this country, got excited about seeing. But even him, people felt like he was boring. But then after Lewis, you had the Klitschkos. They held the top spot in the heavyweight division. They were not from this country, and they were boring because most of their fights, I guess, went the distance. Nobody could do anything with them. So they were great for their time, but they did not bring excitement from the boxing public, and the heavyweight division was looked at as being down for a long period of time, and that kind of brought down the interest level that Americans had toward boxing, it seems like. And people said, oh, there has to be a really great American heavyweight for the United States boxing public to get excited about, and that was not the case for so long. So now we have Deontay Wilder, and he's somebody who many people say is the hardest puncher they've ever seen. When he fights, there's fireworks. As we said, 43 fights, 42 wins, and 41 knockouts. So he pretty much knocks out everybody that he faces. So just how much do you think the interest level in the sport of boxing is being helped that we have an American champion like Deontay Wilder, and he is an exciting watch?
If you just turn on a television, open a newspaper, look at any type of social media outlet, all you see right now is Wilder Fury. I cannot remember another fight in recent memory where it was just everywhere. I mean, this week, I'm in New York, unfortunately. I'm not in Vegas for the fight, but even here in New York, you're seeing it everywhere. I couldn't even imagine what it's like in Vegas right now. So it is important for Deontay, but it's important for Deontay to win. Deontay can't take a loss here. Another draw, I guess, wouldn't be the worst thing, but Deontay needs to prove himself. In my opinion, and a lot of people in boxing, Deontay has a lot of holes in his resume. I mean, if you go down the resume, Luis Ortiz and Arthur Szpilka should not be your signature wins, or a Stavern. For him, he needs Tyson Fury. He needs to beat Tyson Fury to an actual, no disrespect to the others, but Tyson Fury is at a level of boxing that is far superior. He doesn't fight like a heavyweight. Tyson fights like a middleweight. He's very slippery. He can slip punches. He can counter very quickly. And one thing is Tyson, he prepares like he's a smaller guy, yet he's 6'9". He's 6'9", almost 275 pounds. So when you talk about the size of a Tyson Fury and the size of a Deontay Wilder, it's like watching LeBron fight another NBA small forward or power forward. These are the size of the two men in the ring, and it's just going to be something that you don't see too often. This is the second largest as far as size fight in heavyweight history, and the first fight was two guys, a 7-foot Russian that is not very known in the history of boxing. So this is it. This is the biggest fight we've ever seen in the history of the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I did not know that Tyson Fury was named after Mike Tyson. That's interesting. Did not know that. Now, how before the last fight, because boxing is a sport where a lot of people, including myself, kind of lost interest with it over the years, did not follow it too tough, and then Wilder knocking everybody out, and then Fury comes and it's a draw. He almost loses. How well thought of was Fury before the first Wilder fight?
Fury kind of went in and out of his training. As it's well documented, he got up to over 400 pounds. He was very depressed. Tyson talks a lot. He's a very proactive person when it comes to mental health now because he had so many struggles. He was extremely depressed at points in his career where, as I said, he ballooned up to 400 pounds. If you can just Google the pictures of Tyson Fury while he was at his worst point, you wouldn't even believe that was Tyson Fury, a man who's now cut over 100 pounds. And, he's no chiseled, he doesn't have a chiseled body, but he's lost over 100 pounds. He's definitely in shape. He can fight a 12-round fight against the likes of, a top 10 heavyweight, possibly all time in Deontay Wilder. So, Tyson Fury was thought of at a good level, but what he did, in my opinion, against Deontay Wilder, it solidified Tyson's career. He's already beaten big names, and if you go back to the scorecards of the first fight between Wilder and Fury, one judge had 115, 111 Wilder. That was the only judge who thought Wilder won. He had Wilder winning by 4 rounds. Okay? I don't know what fight he was watching. The next judge had it 114, 112 Fury, and of course the third judge had it a draw, 113, 113. If you watch that fight, it's hard to see where Tyson lost the fight other than the 2 knockdowns. So as Tyson's camp goes into this next fight, they're saying he learned from that. Wilder's camp keeps saying that their approach is this. Wilder took a extra time to figure out Fury because he's a very difficult fighter to figure out. He knocks guys out in the first round, second round, third round. It took 10 rounds for him to do any real damage to Tyson Fury. But when he, quote-unquote, figured him out, he knocked him down twice in the last 3 rounds of their first fight. So if you go with that theory, you would think maybe he knocks him down in the first couple of rounds in this fight. But as I said, Tyson changed his trainer. He changed his cut man. He's got the best cut man in the game now, Stitch Duran, who, should that eye open up, which had been surgically repaired by some of the best plastic surgeons in the world, according to Bob Arum, should that eye open up, he has literally the best man in the world to fix that problem in the corner. So that's a big advantage for Tyson Fury.
You said that the 3 judges are from the UK. Is that correct?
No, they're American. All 3 are American. One of them is Steve Weisfeld, and the other 2, I can't recall their name, but Steve Weisfeld is a great judge who's done multiple fights, big fights.
Okay, so that's the reason why Fury wants to get this fight over with and not have to rely on the judges. As we know, we've seen so many controversial fights go the distance and go to the scorecards and we see what the outcomes are and we're just all scratching our head like, how could that have been the case? So, yeah, Fury definitely. Now, the first fight was in Brooklyn, right?
Yes. No, it was in Staples. I'm sorry.
Staples. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, what do you foresee happening in this fight?
I believe the opposite of what everybody believes is basically. I think Tyson will win by points. I know the 3 American judges. I know the cut. I know a lot of things that are going against Tyson. But based on the first fight and the fact that Tyson has changed trainers, he's come in heavier for this fight, which I know coming right after this Andy Ruiz-Anthony Joshua fight, you hear a fighter's coming in heavier, you think automatically negative. But this is a heavyweight division. There is no weight you need to make. As long as you're in shape, honestly, your weight is irrelevant. Your weight does not matter as long as you're in fighting shape. And the fact that Tyson is coming in heavier actually, to me, means he's coming in with more energy. He's coming in with more power. He's coming in with more on his body to protect him. Let's say Wilder doesn't really go to the body much, but you never know if he's switching up his strategy for this fight. So Tyson is taking all the precautions he can, and I do not see how Wilder can figure out the timing of Fury. Everybody talks about Wilder's right hand. To me, his best asset is not his right hand, it's his timing. Because without that timing, his right hand does nothing. If you can't hit somebody with the right hand, what good does it do you? And honestly, Deontay has the best timing in all of boxing. If you put this man in a batting cage, he might hit home runs. That's how good his hand-eye coordination and his footwork is. The way that he steps into punches matched with his intensely long reach is why he knocks people out. He can be so far away from you, and in one stride, he's on top of you. And then when he releases that right hand, ESPN just did one of the sports science studies on Deontay Wilder, and they said that his right fist carries almost 1,400 pounds of pressure. How can you stand that? Nobody can tell me how Tyson Fury withstood that and got up and was fine and still fought a whole nother round.
Yeah, because most guys don't get up. So you think Fury is going to win this fight? Okay, so let me ask you just a couple more. Wilder, he has fought over 40 times, has not lost yet. Fury has not lost either. So this is a matchup between 2 undefeated fighters. But with 41 of his 42 wins coming by knockout, what does Wilder need to do to put himself amongst the best in the pantheon of great heavyweight fighters?
He needs to basically end Tyson Fury's career. Tyson Fury has 3 fights left on his contract. He has made it known those last 3 fights will be his last 3 fights of his career. So, in order for Deontay Wilder to put that nice stamp on his resume and to get finally a big pelt on the wall, he needs to beat Tyson at least twice. This fight, and he needs to beat Tyson for the 3rd fight, which has been contracted already. If he were to beat Tyson in 2 fights, you would have to say Deontay Wilder was putting together a Hall of Fame resume. But without that, beating Stavern twice does not get you in the Hall of Fame. To me, those are, like I said, there's holes in Deontay Wilder's resume, and this is so important for him to win this fight and the next one.
And the last one for you. So, has he been dodging some over his career? Because he has not lost. He's been so dominant. So, were there other fighters for him to fight who were really good that he did not fight? Or is just the caliber of heavyweight fighter now not looked at as good as what it was in the past, and that's why he's not given credit of someone who has been so dominant the way he has?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. He's fought everybody that's been put in front of him. unfortunately, everybody that's been put in front of him is not going to garner much hype, much gains to his legitimate career. He needs a signature win, and he needs the American public to get behind him. I have a friend he's a boxing journalist in the UK, and as an American, it bugs me sometimes when the UK media likes to jab at the American boxing public, because he ran a little skit here in New York when he came for the last fight, the Danny Garcia fight. He did a little promotion on Instagram, and he walked around the city with two photos. One photo of Tyson Fury and one photo of Deontay Wilder. And he was randomly asking people on the street, do you know who this man is? And 95% of the people had no idea who he was. And you're talking about the greatest American boxer in the sport right now. And here in the biggest city in the country, 90% of the people he asked had no idea who he was. Mm. And that's a huge problem when you have the Zone pumping in money to boxing, when you have ESPN pumping more money than they've ever pumped into boxing, and Showtime, and all these different outlets. There's more money in boxing than there's ever been. This is the time for the American boxing public and the American boxing market to take hold of boxing again. And that's, I keep going back to it, that's why it's so important for Deontay Wilder. If America is to keep producing champions and getting at the highest level of the highest weight class, which is the heavyweight division, some of these NFL players, some of these NBA players are going to have to start putting on gloves.
Yeah, right. And so we're going to leave it there. But just a thought. It's boxing. If this was 20, 30, 40 years ago, it would be unheard of that you could go around the streets and ask the public who this heavyweight champion is, and they would not know. So that just shows you kind of just how boxing has fallen in the eyes of the public over the years. But we know that, and part of the reason, definitely among other reasons, is when you have one of these premier fights, you have to pay an arm and a leg just to watch it, and that's, I think, one of the issues, because when you look at the other sports here in this country, it's free. You can watch these matchups for free, or at least through cable television, which is a lot less of a dime out of your pocket than paying, $85 for this big fight. But this is definitely a fight where I feel like I want to buy the fight, so I might have to. Nobody really wants to put down the whole 85 or whatever it is to see one of these things, but I've got to figure out a way to watch this fight tomorrow. So, Josh, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon, and enjoy the fight tomorrow.
Anytime.
Thanks
Enjoy
for
it as
calling.
well.
All right, everybody, that was Joshua Garcia, boxing writer with the New York Beacon, previewing tomorrow's heavyweight matchup between the undefeated Deontay Wilder and the undefeated Tyson Fury.
For Somari Benjamin, my name is Jerry Luke. I want to thank Josh Garcia for calling up. It was a great interview. And we'll see you next week. The fight again is tomorrow night. I had very little knowledge of it, but from what I've heard in the last half hour, I'm looking forward to seeing the fight tomorrow night. It's going to be very interesting.